This is the best evidence that banning Airbnbs will make rent go down. Welcome back, friends. A new study found that an Airbnb ban in Irvine, California led to rent prices decrease, and now looks like this is going to happen also in New York City. Very important topic for everyone. This is Armin Haria from TorqueNews.com. On September 5th, the hammer fell on Airbnb in New York City after a series of desperate attempts by the home-sharing giant to stop the city from enforcing sweeping limitations on short-term rentals. The city passed a law that did just that. In a matter of weeks, thousands of Airbnb listings in the city, once one of the platform's largest markets, went up in smoke. Of the 3,000 or so Airbnb listings that remain in New York, down from some 22,000 in August, the vast majority are for stays of 30 days or more, the minimum number of nights required under the city's regulations. The crackdown was a turning point for Airbnb in New York. Despite legal challenges and histrionics from landlords, the city had all but vanquished short-term rentals. The thinking behind the move was fairly simple. New York City, where the average studio apartment costs $3,016 a month, is the epicenter of the country's sweeping affordable housing crisis. By turning Airbnb back into long-term housing, people will have more places to lay their heads, and landlords will have more competition. In theory, this should make housing in the city more affordable. Airbnb has long denied culpability in the country's housing crisis, but the latest evidence that New York City made the right move comes from the opposite side of the country. Irvine, California, a picturesque city of 300,000 in Orange County, banned short-term rentals back in 2018 as residents grew frustrated by increasing numbers of vacation rentals in once quiet neighborhoods. Based on a new study published this summer in Real Estate Economics, the move had a notable impact. After Irvine's ban went into effect, long-term rent in the city dropped by 3%. According to the study, a decrease of $114 a month on average. Well, 3% isn't a big number, right? But that's $114 a month on average. Irvine is a single case study, but it's also real-world validation of years of research that's found Airbnb and its many copycat drive-up rentals and home prices. That might be good for property owners, but if you have worried about affordable housing, then it's worth taking a lesson from Irvine. Banning short-term rental can, in fact, make rents go down. Have you ever noticed anything in your city if you are involved in Airbnb or renting? When the city of Irvine took a short-term rental in 2018, Airbnb seemed unstoppable. A decade after its founding, the company had upended the hospitality industry and was profitable for the first time in its history. Its tentacles had spread to cities across the globe, converting entire neighborhood blocks, in the most dramatic cases, to short-term rentals. Home sharing had completed its metamorphosis for an idealistic, tech-enabled vision for more friendly travel into a bona fide force. Irvine's 2018 short-term rental regulations, which barred rentals of 30 days or less in all residential areas, were hardly unprecedented. Plenty of cities had passed ordinances banning short-term rentals, only to see Airbnb listings continue to pop up. But as Micah Saylor, a professor of finance at the College of William & Mary and one of the researchers who worked on the new study, explained to Insider, Irvine was able to succeed in actually getting rid of Airbnbs for one reason: enforcement. They enforced it. Here's what he said. What is so different about Irvine's is that they did not just put a ban in place, Saylor said. They actually enforced it. It has long been the law in the state of New York, for instance, that residential apartments cannot be rented out for less than 30 days, except under very limited circumstances. For a decade, Airbnb hosts simply refused to heed this law. Why? It was extremely difficult to enforce. The thousands of Airbnb listings that evaporated overnight in September had always been illegal but managed to survive because they were legitimized by this multi-billion-dollar internet platform, said Murray Cox, the founder of Inside Airbnb, a project that examines Airbnb's impact on cities. New York City had just finally figured out a way to lay down the law. It established a registration process for short-term rentals and barred Airbnb and other platforms from advertising rentals that hadn't been registered with the city first. You see how they tried to enforce it. I think this is a very smart way. In Irvine, California, it took about a year for the city to figure out how to root out the short-term rentals that had taken hold in its sunny, master-planned neighborhoods. The city had to hire a specialized property tech firm to identify and locate illegal short-term rentals in order to enforce them. Even so, some landlords devised clever ways to get around the city's regulations, like offering 30-day leases that, if you looked at the fine print, could be cancelled at any time, allowing for a weekend stay. It took some detective work, said Ken Firebank, a board member of a homeowners association in Irvine, who used to frequently investigate complaints of Airbnb in his own neighborhood. But now, Fairbanks said his neighborhood is Airbnb free. That's consistent with data on short-term rentals in Irvine, which showed that by January 2021, the number of listings in Irvine had halved. When researchers investigated the effect of the sudden disappearance of short-term rentals in Irvine, California, they identified a striking result. Within 2 years of the ban, long-term rents decreased significantly. They estimated that the roughly 60,000 rental units in the city saw a 3% rent decrease on average, which sums up a reduction of $80.7 million in annual total rental spending. The strength of the evidence led the researchers to conclude that the findings provide local governments with empirical evidence that STR regulation policies could be helpful in reducing rents in their cities. This is very exciting. While the Irvine study showed that Airbnb bans can successfully drive down rents, numerous studies have shown the other side of the coin also. When short-term rentals come to town, rents go up. A 2020 study on short-term rentals in Berlin, Germany, found that apartments listed on Airbnb increased the rent of nearby units. In 2017 study in Boston came to a similar conclusion. Other studies have documented these impacts on rents nationwide, including research from 2021 that estimated that Airbnb listings accounted for 1/5 of rent growth in zip codes with a median share of people who own and occupy their home. When you consider the law of supply and demand, these findings make sense. When supply of a commodity drops but demand stays the same, the price of the commodity will rise. That's what Airbnb does to the housing supply. As the Berlin and Boston studies found, when houses of apartments are pulled off the long-term market to be used as short-term rentals, housing supply decreases. But actual residents still need a place to live, so they are forced to fight over and pay up for the more limited housing stock. The Irvine researchers figured that rent dropped after the local ban because when the landlords put their Airbnbs back on the market as long-term rentals, there was more housing supply. Suddenly, the landlords had to compete for tenants, making it harder for them to jack up rents. Let me know your thoughts, friends. The Irvine study found little evidence for alternative theories, such as the notion that Airbnb ban hurt the local economy by reducing tourists, thus displacing tenants and lowering demand for rentals. This is Armen Harayan from Tortoise.com. God bless you, and let me know your thoughts in the comment section below for discussion.